There I was, standing on top of my mother's couch with my favorite toy in hand and a blanket tied around my neck. Truth is, if my mom knew what I was doing at the time, she would have probably killed me. Sorry, Mom. When I was 5 years old, I tried to fly. I didn't have a plane. I definitely didn't have a pilot license. But the one thing that I did have was an imagination. Confidently, I stood and I probably said something along the lines of this. On this day, I'm going to defy the odds of gravity and soar around this living room. If you think back to the first Toy Story, you can imagine me as Buzz Lightyear as he flew around Andy's room, leaving all the other toys in awe. Maybe some of you had a moment similar to mine as a child. And for a moment, I'd like to ask you to close your eyes and imagine yourself as a child. Maybe you were swinging on the swing at a playground. Maybe you jumped off of a bed, or like myself, a couch. But think about how confident you were in that moment. You can open your eyes. You might have been sure of your ability to fly even if you had never done it before, but you tried. And then even when realizing that it was actually humanly impossible to fly, you probably got back up and tried again. Not to be disappointed in your inability to fly, but to feel the exciting rush that trying, that jumping, that taking the risk brought. You know, I actually know that some of you attempted to do the impossible as a child because I did a little research of my own. I surveyed over 100 people asking them if they made an attempt to fly as a child. 73% said yes. Interesting. Upon answering, I also asked them what made them believe that they could fly, and I also asked them what that moment felt like. I'd like to share a few of those responses with you all today. I had no reason to believe that I could not fly. Even after I failed, I felt excited because for a moment I did. It wasn't hitting the ground that mattered. It was that I had jumped. My parents instilled in me that I could do anything, and I still believe that to this day. You don't know until you try. Today, I want to share with you a moment where I truly lost my wings. But through that experience, I actually learned what it truly meant to fly. As you listen to my talk today, I want you to think about a moment where you may have lost your wings as well. But instead of choosing to settle in moments like these, I want you to consider standing up and choosing to fly again. As a child, I not only wanted to fly, but a basketball star. To me, I had the handles of Allen Iverson and the scoring ability of Michael Jordan, but that was rudely interrupted after I was cut from the middle school basketball team 2 years in a row. It was a rough moment for me there. It was then that I had decided that it was time to try something new. So I went out for track and field. And by the age of 18, running had become my world. To me, it was flying. I lived it, and I breathed it. I had reached my senior year, and everything was going well, but throughout the season, I had a small discomforting feeling in my left foot. If you were a young athlete like me, you probably thought as I thought, oh, everything will be fine. This will go back to normal. So I thought little of it. I trained through it. And I tried my best to block it out mentally. April 9th, 2013, I'm running an anchor leg on a relay, and as I took the baton, we had the lead, and my job as the anchor was to keep it that way and finish the race. You know, I had plans of finishing that race and regrouping for practice the next day, but little did I know that on that day I would be running the last race of my high school athletic career. I felt excited as I prepared myself for the last 100 meters. The finish line seemed so close. I took a routine stride, and as I picked my left foot up off the ground, it had begun to come down. As my foot hit the ground, I heard a sound that I had never heard in my entire life. It was as if someone had snapped their finger in my left ear. It was as if everything slowed down. I felt nervous, anxious, and fearful. And as I looked back at the incoming competitors, they were making up ground, and I had a decision to make. So I put my head down, and with every piece of strength that I could find in that moment, I decided to finish the race. I had won the race, but to me, it felt like I had lost something. My wings. You know, maybe some of you have had moments in life where you felt like your wings were damaged. Maybe things didn't go as you expected. Maybe you felt like you failed. Or maybe even when you jumped off the couch as a child and you landed on the ground, you got back up and said, man, what's wrong with these things? I had surgery 2 days later, and during my 8-week recovery process, I felt that everything that I had worked hard for was now out of reach. But eventually I made it back to my feet. Through extreme amounts of physical therapy, I had began running again, and by summer 2013, I was ready to leave home for Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I would be continuing my academic and athletic career at Indiana Tech. I had dreams of racing again, of flying again. But during my first 2 years of college, I ended up breaking my foot 2 more times. It was during these moments that I knew if I allowed the weight of the pain and the amount of frustration to get to me, that I would have refused to get back to something that I loved. So I looked for something that was equally as important to me as running. I'd like to ask you, is there something that you need to fly back to? Is there something that you once loved that you need to reconnect with? For me, that was art. So I picked up the pencil. See, I've been an artist since I was a child. I love to create things, but I was so caught up with everything that running had put on my plate that I had stopped creating for nearly 2 years. I couldn't tell you why, but I knew that all of the free time that I had due to my injuries could only be beneficial if I looked at it from a completely different perspective. At first, I was down on myself. I lacked belief in what had once been my wings to fly, to feel purposeful and impactful. I could not do. So I relied on my art. And as I relied on my art, after hundreds of pieces of crumpled up paper, this is what I came up with. Let me introduce you to my characters. Idea, my firstborn, he's a charismatic light in his own life in which he leads us to find the treasures that we have buried deep inside of us. Dream is Idea's imaginative, brave best friend. And although he looks very inviting, he's not always easy to grasp. Knox, he may look like a simple box, but he can either serve as a friend or an enemy. He could either box you in or serve as a step up. As I got more engaged with my art, I felt as if my wings were beginning to spread again. I regained confidence in myself, my dreams, and my ideas. I felt as if I was flying again. Sometimes life may call us to slow down. We may fall, but when we do, the magic is in getting up and deciding to fly again. I really believe that I can do something special with my art. It was a long shot. But with one wing damaged, I refuse to leave the other unused. Life may call us to slow down. We may fall, but when we do, the magic is in getting up and deciding to fly again. I never sought out to answer the question, can I fly? Instead, I imagined myself as the 5-year-old, filled with confidence, standing on top of my mother's couch, and I jumped. Only this time, I didn't hit the ground. I allowed my mind to show me all that could be possible. And all the small achievements along the way allowed me to know that I could fly. So I told you a little bit about my art and a little bit about the challenges that I had with running. But track and field still meant a lot to me. I'd wanted to be a part of the history that my track and field team at Indiana Tech was making, but I was afraid. I would always question myself, can I do this? But I had my coaches, my teammates, and my family standing beside me as they believed that I could fly again. It was 2015, and that season, I ended up traveling to the national championship with my team as an alternate for the 4x800 meter relay. As we traveled, I looked out the window with the feeling of achievement, feeling as if I had done it. I was racing, and my art was impacting others. I believed in myself more than ever. Who would have thought that after such little activity, deciding to jump would allow me to see such a beautiful view? And that view is something that we all deserve to see. You know, if we let life tell us how high we can go, we might find ourselves on the ground. But the imagination is boundless. So I ask you, what is it that you want to do? Who is it that you want to become? And I challenge you to imagine yourself as a child, filled with confidence and belief, and jump. I'd like to leave you all with a quote and ask one small favor of you. Aaron Hansen once said, "There is freedom waiting for you on the breezes of the sky." And you ask, what if I fall? Oh, but my darling, what if you fly? Lastly, I would like to ask you to repeat these words after me one by one. I can fly. Yes, you can. Thank you.